Let's get ready together while I tell you some facts about me. I'm going to an event tonight, so I'm gonna put quite a bit of makeup. Let's start by my name. My name is Zoe and I currently live in Miami. I was born and raised in France, so I'm definitely French, for the people wondering. And I left when I was 18. I left because I started my modeling career at the age of 18, and my agent sent me to Australia to start when I didn't speak. I spoke a little bit of English, but barely any. He sent me to Australia first because he thought it would be a great way for me to become more mature, to learn modeling, to focus on learning English. It's definitely helping if you want to be a model and you don't speak proper English. You have to talk with clients and people on the job, and just makes life better and easier. So that's why I first went to Australia. I spent about 2.5 months there, which was amazing. I lived on Bondi Beach and I was so lucky. I absolutely loved it there. I was definitely immature, and if I went back to Australia nowadays, I would do way more. I was a bit scared to do things on my own. So I didn't get to experience it fully. That's why I want to go back to Australia. But it was a great experience and I met incredible people. After that, I traveled a lot, places to places. I spent, I think it was 2 months in Madrid, 2 months in Barcelona, 2 months in Milan. Actually, I spent longer than 2 months in Milan, in London, where else, I think in Munich as well. I was just traveling, but it was very lonely because I was never staying in a place long enough to make good friends. I met really fun people, but it was great. It was a good experience. I was just so tired by the end of it, and I asked my agent if I could just settle down somewhere. So the only place where I felt I would settle down at the time was London, because it was a great market. It was, for me, I worked really well there. And it was so close to France, so if I wanted to see my family or my friends from school, I could easily go back there. And yeah, it was also an easy train to Paris because I had quite a few clients in Paris, so it was very easy to work in Paris and London. And my agency was a really good agency there, so my agent said yes, and I moved to London. As soon as I moved to London, I made some friends. They were French and English, most of them were English. And that became my family in London. I still love them. I haven't seen them in a while now because I'm in the US and they're still in London. They became family to me. They were all a little bit older, but they were incredible to me. So I spent, I think, total 4 years in London working full-time as a model. And then I met my boyfriend. We moved in together pretty quickly because we met just before COVID, a few months before COVID. And at the time I was changing apartments. I was about to sign a contract to move to my new apartment, and literally the day I was about to sign, they announced the lockdown, and I had something inside of me telling me that maybe I was not going to be able to work for a month or two, so I should just keep my money and not spend it on a flat in London. So I called the landlord and I was like, okay, do you mind if we wait and sign this lease? Just, wait until the end of the lockdown. And my boyfriend was like, oh, you can just move in with me for 2 weeks between your current place and your new place once the lockdown is finished. And that ended up being, I think the lockdown in London stayed for, I think it was 4 months. So after 4 months, my boyfriend was like, okay, we already moved together. I don't want you to go to another place. So, we moved in together. It was a great way to test our relationship because I feel like so many couples move in together after a few years and then they realize that they just don't work. And for us, we realized very quickly that we worked great living together, being together full time. It was a great way to learn each other very, very quickly. And that's why then we made a big move to the US together. So when the first lockdown ended in London, my boyfriend had to move to Dallas, and at the time I didn't have a visa for the US. I've had worked in the US before and had lived for a few months in LA, but my visa was not valid. So we were thinking of ways to do it, and he moved to the US and I had to stay in Europe for I think it was 2 or 3 months just to make my visa while he was settling down in the US, and then I would come and join him. But it was honestly so difficult to get a visa during the lockdowns and COVID, because I was supposed to go back to France to my family for a month to do my visa, but they announced a second lockdown, so I ended up basically being blocked there for, I think it was 3 months, which was so stressful because at the time we didn't know how long it was going to be, so we got separated by the lockdowns for a month, and I got, blocked in France. I couldn't work because I was in my hometown with my parents. Couldn't work for, I think it was 3 or 4 months, and I didn't have a visa yet. It was so stressful, and I just didn't really know what was going to happen next. And once I got the visa, which was a month later, I basically, once you get your visa, you need to get a stamp in your passport to get it approved to be able to come to the US. The problem was every single embassy where you could get the stamp was closed in the world. Calling the French embassy, they were telling me that I could take an appointment for a year, like literally a year later. And until you have your stamp, you can't work in the US. So again, that was a stressful period, and I said I was going to do a story time about this, but I can just explain it quickly here. So what I ended up doing is calling every single US embassy in the world and see which one was open. And they were in the most random places, the one that were open. I didn't have a choice. I moved out of London. I couldn't work in France, and my boyfriend was in the US, so I just had to find an embassy. And one of the only one that was open was in Guyana, not in French Guyana, but in British Guyana. And the flights there was so crazy expensive at the time because of COVID. And also Guyana, it's not a great place to visit. The wildlife is beautiful. If you go in the countryside, it's amazing, but the city itself is very dangerous. So you can't travel alone. So my boyfriend had to come with me. Another thing that was so stressful is you couldn't book your appointment until you were there. You had to pay the US embassy cash to book your appointment. So I literally, my only chance to get that visa was to fly to Guyana, pay in cash the US embassy to get an appointment. So I flew there. It was so much money, and I had no idea if that was going to work. But again, that was the only thing that I could do at that point. I didn't have a choice. Even the lawyer that worked on my visa at the time thought I was completely crazy. But she understood, because all of her models that she worked with, all the clients were in the same situation as me. And again, I'm looking back, I called my parents and they thought I was crazy. And I did think I was crazy as well, but that was the only solution. We stayed in Dallas for about 1.5 years, which was a nice place. We liked it, but it was not the place for us. We didn't feel like we wanted to settle down there. So we made a move to Miami a few months ago, and we are so in love with Miami, our neighborhood, our life. We make so many friends here. We're just having a great time, and it feels like everything is coming together. So we definitely see ourselves living in Miami for at least a few years. Maybe longer, I don't know. Anyway, let me know if you want a part 2 and if you like this video. Also, I have plenty of story time, so let me know if you're interested in that. Bye!